If you're writing the same old boring chord progressions, 1, 4, 5, whatever, and it just sounds like the thing you've heard a million times before, and you want to play something with a little more flavor, you're in the right place. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about secondary dominants and a couple bonus things. So let's get into it. What are secondary dominants? Let's start with the dominant chord. A dominant chord is a type of chord. It's a chord quality. It's a 1, 3, 5, a major triad, and a flat 7. So I'm going to play my G here, and I'm going to have 1, 3, 5, and then I'm going to add that flat 7, which is 2 steps away from the root, on the top string. From G, I'm going down to F. That's my G7. Now that's a dominant 7 chord. Major, triad, flat 7. Now, I'm going to take you back in time. If you played that, you're a court jester in the medieval times, and you were going... Game over. You're out of here. That was regarded as pretty dissonant sound. Something to be avoided in music. Now, what's interesting is that that's actually within the key. You know, that's not like some crazy thing that's been, thrown in there. That's in the key. If you play all of your 7th chords in a key, you get a major 7, a minor 7, a minor 7, a major 7, and this dominant 7. This funky, kind of tense chord quality. So this is not some crazy thing that's been, invented. It's from the key, and yet it still was rarely used. Now, fast forward a couple years from then, people realized that it actually resolved really nicely to the 1 chord. So all that tension that was an avoid note, actually, it's pretty nice when you take it and you use it in the right way. And so this dominant 7 became used as a way to generate some tension and subsequently release it back to home. So a 5 to 1 became this way to encapsulate tension and release, or call and response. 1 to the 4 chord, to my 5 chord, played as a dominant 7, and I'm bringing it home back to 1. So that's a dominant chord. It's a type of chord. It's a 1, 3, 5, flat 7, major chord with a flat 7, and it's also a spot within the key. It's the 5 chord. It only happens as a 5 chord. Okay? Now let's talk about secondary dominance. What's secondary mean? So fast forward another little bit of time, and musicians started to ask, could we use a dominant chord to imply resolution where maybe there otherwise isn't any? So let's say, we're still in the key of C. I want to go to my A minor. That's pretty standard chord progression, and it's pretty flat. It's not bad. You could write a great song with those chords. But it doesn't really go anywhere. It's kind of middle of the road. If I want my A minor to feel like it's a resolution, I'm going to approach it by its dominant. This is our secondary dominant idea. So dominant is 2 things. It's a type of chord, and it's a number of chord. It's an interval. It's the 5 chord. Now, it's not 5 of C. It's 5 of wherever we're going. We're going to A, so I got to count A, B, C, D, E. Now, in the key of C, the E chord is an E minor chord. And that doesn't have a whole lot of resolution to the A. But I didn't make it a dominant 7 chord, so an E dominant 7, an E7 has a G sharp. Right there. Now that's not in the key of C. That's going to take us out. But it's going to be okay because all that tension from going to a note that's not in the key is going to be resolved to the chord that we get to. So now instead of C to A minor, I have C, E7, A minor. And you might play these progressions and recognize them from songs. This is actually a pretty famous progression that a certain piano man used in one of his songs. That song would have been pretty boring without that E7. That E7 is an integral component of that song. Now he actually, I think, plays a sharp 9. Which takes it an even step further, but that's for another day. Let's do another one. I'm going to E minor. C, E minor. Pretty flat, right? Just kind of normal. Not bad, but like, you know, I get it. I'm going to approach E minor by its dominant. So this is a secondary dominant. The 5 of E, E, F, G, A, B. B, and it has to be a 7th chord, B dominant 7. So that introduces a D sharp. There's no D sharp in the key of C. We're going out of the key to generate some tension and subsequently release it and enrich our storytelling with more twists and turns to keep our listener entertained. You might recognize this one too. It's another classic song that uses a secondary dominant. Now that's not in the key of C, it's in the key of D flat, but it's the same idea, just different chord letters. So what do we take away from this? Well, you can approach any major or minor chord in a key by its dominant, which would be a chord that's outside of the key. So there are 6 major and minor chords in the key of C: C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor. Let's approach each of them by their secondary dominant. So I'll start on C. I want to go to D minor. So I got to count. D, E, F, G, A is the 5. Play an A7. Go to D minor. Very nice. I want to go to E minor, next chord. E, F, G, A, B. B7. Kind of nice. I'm going to F. F, G, A, B, C. C7. Very nice. Want to go to G. G, A, B, C, D. D7. I want to go to A minor. A, B, C, D, E. E7. Those are the 6 major and minor chords in the key. Actually, I missed C, but that's just the normal 5 to 1. So that doesn't take us out of the key, although it is the dominant to 1 resolution. The only chord that's unusual or uncommon to approach by a dominant chord is the 7th chord of the key, because it's a diminished chord and it's already very tense. So the 5 of B would be F sharp. And if I play an F sharp dominant to B minor 7 flat 5, there's not a whole lot of resolution because that chord is so dissonant already. It's hard to make it feel like home. So most of the time, that's a little less common. But approaching any of the other 1 through 6 chords in your key by their secondary dominants, very, very cool songwriting choice. And I'm sure as you play around with this, you're going to hear that happen in songs or recognize, oh, that's that song. That sounds like this. That songwriter might have used a secondary dominant. So that's literally everything you need to know about secondary dominants, but we're going to go a step further, which is we're going to ask, why does it work? Because it seems very arbitrary, right? I've got my G7, and I got these 2 notes, and then I've got my C, and I've got these 2 notes. Why do these 2 notes feel out and these 2 notes feel in? Well, the first interval is a pretty dissonant one. We can kind of hear that. And it's to do with the way the overtones and the notes ring with each other. They kind of rub in a certain way. There's like friction there. But why does it go here? One of the ways that we can analyze this is by half-step resolutions. So a half step, or one fret or one note on whatever instrument you're playing, is one of the most pulling intervals, right? When I play this G7, what I'm really hearing is F wants to go to E. And the B note in the G7 wants to go to C in the C chord. See, there's two notes in the G7, the B and the F, that are each a half step away from two notes in our one chord, the C. So when you're in C, your ear kind of knows what home is. And when you go to that G7, you kind of recognize, ooh, I'm really close to home, but I'm also really far away. And there's the resolution. So what's really happening in dominant 7 resolution is that you're resolving via half step. There's a half step resolution happening from one chord to the next. Now, why is this important? Because if you understand this, you're not just going to be playing secondary dominants 5 to 1s. You're going to be making your own interesting chord choices just by saying, well, I'm going to create some voice leading. Let's take an example. Let's say I want to go to F. Now, secondary dominant, 5 of F would be C, F, G, A, B, C. So I'd play C7 to F. Now, I'm going to play D7 to F. That's got a different flavor, but it kind of works. How? If D7 is the 5 of G, G, A, B, C, D, shouldn't D7 go to G? The half-step resolution is really what we're hearing. You see, the D7 has an F sharp, and the C chord has a G. So I've created a half-step resolution that goes down to the F in the F chord. When I play C, we hear G. When I hear D7, we hear F sharp, which is out of the key. It's kind of weird, but it resolves really nicely to the F because it's a half-step resolution. So I don't have to play 5 to 1. I can make my own half-step resolutions. Here's another common one. Maybe you've heard this before. You're playing C. You go to the 4 chord. You hear the minor 4. And then the 1. Why does that work? That's not a 5 to 1. Well, when you play an F chord, you have an A note. When you play an F minor chord, you have an A flat. When you play a C chord, you have a G. So when you hear 4, minor 4, 1, what you're really hearing is A flat, G. Make sense? So if you understand this idea of half-step resolutions rather than just of dominant 7 goes to whatever it's the 5 of, so I'm on like C7, then I'm going to F because F, G, A, B, C, C is the 5 of F. That's incredibly useful, but still only skimming the surface because you're not really paying attention to why it works. If you think about the half-step resolutions, then you can start to do all sorts of things that don't really follow the general rules of a secondary dominant. For example, and now we're really getting into the weeds, but why not? Let's just tack this on too. A tritone substitute is where you substitute a 5 chord with a chord that's a tritone away. So if I'm playing 5 to 1 in the key of C, that would be G7 to C. Tritone substitute for G would be D flat. Why does that go to C? D minor, D flat, C. Because it's a half-step resolution. You play major 7 too. I hope this gives you an idea of the kind of control that you can have when you're writing songs and when you're putting chords together. You want to go outside of the key, we need a lens to look through, because otherwise I'm just trying random stuff, and that doesn't really work. So we look at secondary dominants and we get a couple little tools, but then we look a little bit deeper and we understand, why does it work? What is happening that gives us this sound? And if we understand that, then we can really take control of the songs that we're writing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Your homework is to go write a song that uses a secondary dominant. Start in the key of C or any other key if that's a good one for you or for your voice or for your band, and see if you can create something cool with these techniques we've talked about today. Thanks so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing and checking out below. I have some links if you want to try a guitar lesson with me. Sign up for the Patreon waiting list. I'm going to be putting some cool stuff together there. And yeah, I hope to see you in a future video. Now go write a cool song.